All right. I got a question for Scott because he's been so quiet over here. Recently, there's been some news about a building commissioner, building inspector, zoning board man who's been, quite frankly, terrorizing property owners. Can you explain a little bit more about that and what you do different? What went wrong and what you do different? I don't know. I heard stories about, Jonathan Smith going in at gunpoint and kicking people out of properties over. Just a little bit more on that, please.
Yeah, so I do have a personal experience with this. I had bought property over on Newman Drew Road, right on the river. I called the town office and spoke to John Smith directly. I hadn't known at that point in time. Or before I bought the property, I asked about all the permitting. DES included the septic system that was on the property before buying it. And so I did my research. I was yes to death by the town. So I moved to the property planned on living in my RV while I was building my house. And you can do that, right? So in Ossipee, you can only live in your RV for 4 seasons if you have a building permit. In which case, John Smith did grant me a building permit. And so I got my foundation done. And so keep in mind that within granting a building permit for a residential structure, there needs to be a septic system that is already approved by the state to be installed. Now keep in mind I bought the property with the septic already installed. And John Smith wrote me the building permit and told me that it had been approved by the state. Now fast forward a year, my foundation is done. He comes and inspects it. Everything's okay, but he gives me a call 2 days later and says, oh, by the way, Scott, your septic system had never been approved by the state, so your building permit is invalid. So he then threatens to kick me off my property. Keep in mind, I'm still within the year of my building permit, but I go ahead and I rush through the state. I have my septic system redesigned. I even elongate it, bring it all up to code. It is approved. I give John Smith all my paperwork, and he denied my building permit continuance. And I have no other resource to live. I put all my eggs in this basket of my property, and I did everything right. But then he had the police come to my door and kick me off my property and deny my building permit, even though I had all my stuff together. I had all my paperwork done. The state approved everything. And so part of me running for office here is I know that me in the role of a zoning board member, I don't have much power. But I want to get educated in how small town politics work so that in the future, maybe I can help someone like myself going through that. Because the building department there, whether you're code or zoning, you name it, is to help hold people's hand and walk them through the process, get to the goal of their structure that they want to do, but not be a bully. And so if I can at least try and understand how this works, and within my background of being a builder, having an architecture degree and a construction management degree, I think I fit that role, and maybe I can bring a young new perspective from a frustrated citizen. And I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you. Yes, same question, really. Because I have to say, at the last event, these two people, Stephen and Scott, were the only two, the most outspoken against our current selectman, Jonathan Smith. And I want to know more about what has been called tyranny from you two.
And I also, and my dog is in the truck right now. She's a sweet 8-year-old Bernese mountain dog. And so on top of this whole situation with John Smith, my first interaction with him is he pulled up in a town truck with TJ Eldridge and Matt Sawyer. All three of them got out of the truck. My dog was on a runner. I do understand there's a leash law in New Hampshire, but my own private property. And my dog was on the runner. John Smith got out of his truck with his gun, pulled out of his holster, and the other two gentlemen came out with billy clubs. And that bullying alone inside itself, and I just moved to the property, is asinine in my perspective. So I apologize for the
So basically what happened to Scott, Jonathan Smith came on his property. A couple of things that Scott left out, and I know of his background, and him and I have spoken extensively about this. There is a pending lawsuit, and John's going to join it Scott's going to enjoy it with me, myself. Jonathan also told Scott that there was a complaint filed, and this seems to be his motive. He goes and harasses people, and he says that there's been a complaint filed that never was really filed. He pulled the same crap on me, but I'm a little bit more educated about how this stuff works. I went and filed the 91A immediately to find out if there was a complaint filed. There wasn't a complaint filed. So Jonathan Smith was trespassing on my property. Criminal trespassing. I have a gate. I don't just have a driveway. My property's posted with a gate. You go around that gate, you are criminal trespassing. I don't care who you are. He did the same thing to me. He came on my property and he said that he had a complaint. I said, oh, real? I know all my neighbors. I went and asked them all. Nobody had any idea what he was talking about. So I went down and I filed the 91A. No such complaint exists. So I went and I talked to the chief of police. And I said, guess what? I want you to go arrest Jonathan Smith for trespassing on my property. Well, I can't do that. I said, why not? He's a criminal. Well, I can't arrest the selectman. He's my boss. So then you get this big rigmarole. You talk to the attorney general, you talk to the Carroll County attorney, you talk to the sheriff, you talk to the state police, and you get nothing but complaints, and nobody does anything. This is not my job. This is not my job. That's what you hear all day long. This is a civil matter. So I filed a civil lawsuit. And it turned out to be a little bit of a joke because it seems to me like the local judge is in on it. So I went and filed a federal lawsuit last week. And we'll see what happens this week with that because what I hear, the feds don't fool around. And the FBI is going to be investigating this. And we'll see what happens.
That's just a little bit more than the law will allow. Just a good old boy. They wouldn't change if they could. Fighting the system like a true modern day Robin Hood.